International break, another one out the way. I believe there's one to go. It's back to the real word of Barclays. And who do we play? That team that stopped the Invincibles that season. Let's talk about it. Welcome to Khanage. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, as the case may be, wherever you are tuning in from all around the world, because we know this show is international, right, people? We know this show is international. Welcome to another episode of Carnage, sponsored by the one and only EliteMe.com. www.eliteme.com is the website. Elite Me is the name of the company for all your CBD needs. People, I've told you before, you know the story by now. It's seeing is believing, feeling is believing. You got to try this stuff. It's that good. Um, They've got a vast range of CBD oils. They do balms. They do all sorts now. Go and check them out. And you know what? If you go on their website and you type in LFC 10, you even get a 10% discount. So you literally can't go wrong. What do you want, blood? So yeah, before we go, I needed to give my amazing sponsors. They've been so patient with me. I've had a couple of weeks off and they weren't happy with me, but hopefully I'm back in their good books. But yeah, welcome. What a panel I've got today to talk all things football and all things Watford in particular. That team that we used to love because they gave us Mr. John Barnes himself, and we are forever grateful for them. But last time out, they gave us a bit of a spanking. Let's not beat around the bush. And I've got the main man from all things Watford, the Watford correspondent himself, Mr. Jacob. How are we doing? Thank you so much for coming on.
Mate. Grizz, it's a pleasure to be on. I think it was a year ago we linked up, didn't we? In lockdown.
Yeah.
Obviously through 90 minutes as well, the main man. So, mate, great to be on. Great to be on Khanage. Oh, you know, I have to admit, I watched the show on a Thursday night. I know it's on a Friday today, but I do watch the show.
You're a legend. That's why. This is why you're the official Watford correspondent. You are. You know, the season that you was down, we missed you so much, JG. I wanted Watford back up in the Premier League because of you. Like, you know, your team, like, all right, whatever. But I thought, no, Jacob doesn't deserve the championship.
Thanks,
he needs the Premier League.
Mate, I need it.
You need it. Excellent. And I've got you know, Conroy, who done an amazing job last time out, and I had to get him back. He done such an amazing job cocking up my intro that I thought he's part of the furniture. Because when you mess up, that's when you know you're part of Khanage.
Yeah,
and,
I've had to phone Chris to come in, so it didn't happen again.
Do you know what I mean? So we thought, let's not take any risks, right, with Conroy. And we got them, you know, one of the seniors in, Chris Brack. Chris, how are we doing, pal? I think, correct me if I'm wrong, and you will, because you are the man with the stats and the facts. Your debut on Khanage.
It is, mate. Debut Khanage, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, looking forward to it, mate. Looking forward to it. Enjoy watching these. Normally you rip in into Avi, which is always good fun. Takes over for me doing it on a Friday night.
I'm trying to do eeny, meeny, miny, mo, who I'm going to pick on today, because I tend to sometimes pick on Jakey on 90 minutes. Conroy got it from me. Conroy got it from me from the last Khanage. But Chris,
might be my turn this time.
You being a senior member, it feels a bit weird if I picked on you, but let's see how it goes. No promises, Chris.
If it's fair game, mate. If it's fair game.
Exactly. Listen, let's. A lot of people are sort of want to talk about Klopp's press conference today, Chris. I think everyone. There we go. Let's get this one up first away. Thank you so much for the super chat from King Rich. He says Klopp moaning. I thought he was content with the squad. What does he mean by this, Chris? Anything happened in the press conference today?
Yeah, I mean, Klopp bodied a few people this weekend. To be fair to him, it seems to be a thing now with Klopp, isn't it? If Klopp gives a criticism or an honest opinion, he's moaning about the squad. he actually doesn't mention moaning about the squad. What he mentions about is things like Curtis Jones doesn't train for England all week, not fit. They don't send him for a scan, but then they throw him on for the last 20 minutes against Andorra, so not exactly a big game. Guess what? He's come back with a groin injury, which he had. So that's why he's looking and going, well, how's that fair? So that's not moaning about the squad. That's moaning about how people organise things. And the thing he's been mentioned before, which is, it's okay for Brazil to play a game on a Friday morning, but then we can't, and then we miss about players. How's that fair? When in Spain, the Spanish just go, do you know what? We'll give those teams the weekend off because then we want to make it, give ourselves the best opportunity. So it's things like that he's gone for. And then I think he also went for Gareth Southgate, which was, I think the line was, Gareth gets influenced by players not playing for the club. He said, but Mr. Stones must be a special case, which is a good point. I think that was his hint of, I think he'd like Joe Gomez to go and play with England because he could do with some minutes, but because he's not playing for Liverpool, he doesn't get picked. But John Stones does get picked, despite the fact he's not played a single minute for City yet this year. So, to be fair to him, I thought they were all valid points. They weren't really moans, and he kind of said, that's why we have a big squad. But he said, but we're not robots. You need to kind of organise the calendar a bit better. But then again, people accuse Klopp of moaning about the half-12s after Champions League games, and lo and behold, a year later, they've seen sense and gone, it's probably not great doing a half-12 when people play Champions League on a Wednesday, and we don't do it now. So, he's normally ahead of the curve, but I have no doubt BT Sports will have a field day because they'll be dying to goad him again.
They will. Conroy, your opinions on the Klopp press conference? I mean, obviously, it's always going to be blown up to be bigger than what it usually is because of the fact that it's Klopp. And I'm not just saying just Klopp. Obviously, any one of the big 4 or 3 managers that speak on this kind of topic, it always gets sort of, exaggerated or maybe magnified. See, I'm slightly in disagreement with Chris, only in the aspect of I don't think he needed to bring out the Gomez and the Southgate chat. I thought that was, what was the purpose of that? Did you see the wisdom behind it? Because I'm not the most wise. Maybe you saw the wisdom behind it. What possibly could have been the wisdom behind it? And his other chat about sort of, that makes sense. The fixtures, the timing of the fixture, not to be able to put it back in the evening. The fact that Curtis Jones was injured. They knew he was injured, yet they played him again. So that all makes sense. What did you think overall?
I do think at times, I feel like, I know some people might think Klopp goes in with these mind games, and at times he probably does try that, but sometimes I do feel like it's a bit like once he gets one out, as Chris said, he just kind of went for a few today. I think he was just annoyed, and he is emotional is maybe the wrong word, but at times I feel like he does hold back sometimes in the press conferences, not to give anything away. But as Chris said today, I think it was one thing after the other. I do agree with Grizz more on the kind of the Gomez thing, the Southgate thing. I feel like we've heard that previously. I don't really know if he had to go to that. I completely understand the Jones thing. And then I know he's not alluded to yet, but the Newcastle, that's probably the headline from the press conference, to be honest, that he's, I don't want to go too far off topic, but he basically said, maybe 6 months ago, not even that long ago, we're talking about the Super League and how it's a disgrace. But now equivalently, we've got a super team, and he couldn't see. Obviously, there's differences in the amount involved, but he said there is a relation there, but there doesn't seem to be the same opinion towards that, which I'm kind of on the fence about, to be honest. But I'd like to get your guys' thoughts. But overall, I agree with Grizz in the sense I don't really see the point about bringing the Gomez thing. It's like, to me, it just seemed like it was like one came out the bag and then a few just followed it today with the press conference.
But that's kind of typical Klopp, isn't it? He's a very emotional guy, wears his heart on his sleeve and passionate about certain things, and he's not scared to talk about them and bring them up. And I think LFC Aaron here with a super chat, appreciate the super chat, Aaron. He says Klopp is one of the last honest men in ever-growing dishonest game. Klopp will walk away from Watford. I was going to say Klopp will walk away from Watford. You wish, mate. You walk away from Watford.
That'd be a great 2023 for Jacob. He'd be loving life.
Klopp will walk away from football in 2024.
I'd still prefer man.
Exactly. Coming to you, Jacob. Sorry, go on, Chris. What was you going to say?
Did you think about the Gomez thing, where I think maybe he's brought it up, is John Stones isn't playing for City, but he can get in the England squad. So
but why does he care about that, though?
No, but what's he doing? What's he doing for Man City? He's getting minutes into a rival's legs and basically getting John Stones, in a way, getting John Stones up to speed. So when John Stones gets thrown for City, it's not like he's going in cold. He's played 3 or 4 games for England.
I do think it's
Which
pick
why
your
can't
battles. Pick your battles. Like it's just a bit.
well, maybe he's
nothing.
going. Well, why couldn't you do that for England? Let's be fair. England have done Gomez quite a few times injury wise.
No, I do get it, Chris. I understand. I do understand the thing behind it, but it does kind of scream to me. Pick your battles. It's a lot for nothing really in that one. But I do get what you're saying.
Yeah,
Jacob.
Sorry, mate. What were the comments about Curtis Jones? Is it something to do with him playing in the Andorra game?
So basically, Curtis Jones has been injured whilst on international duty. He seemed to have a groin strain, so he didn't play in the first game or two. Was it first 2 games?
No, it was only first game. Then he played 2.
So he didn't play in the first game because he was ruled out with a groin injury. He was named as a substitute a few days later in a game against Andorra that really didn't need him to come on, knowing that he's just recovered or recovering possibly from a groin strain, and Klopp blew his lid. Like, why they should have known that he's carrying an injury. He's ruled out from the first game. Why is he being brought on in the last few minutes against Andorra? Didn't make sense. I think there should be a certain blame attached to Curtis Jones. He should have been maybe wiser, but he's a young lad. He probably wanted to come on. Just probably know your body better than others. But that was the moan about Curtis Jones from Klopp, Jacob. But I was going to ask you, what do you think about, as an outsider, when you see these things from Klopp, or he comes out with statements about certain things?
Sure.
What do you think of him as a manager in terms of press conference and his relationship with the media?
You know what, mate? We had a little bit of a joke before about Klopp being at Watford. I would love Klopp to be your manager. I mean, he's got such an infectious personality, and if I was a player playing for Klopp, I would run through brick walls for him because he's such a good manager. And I think what he's clever at, the fact that we're talking about these comments in the media, regardless of whether they're right or wrong, he's taking the pressure off his own players, if you know what I mean. So I think it's a very clever tactic, and the best managers do it. Pep does it, Klopp does it, pardon me, Fergie did it. The best managers take the pressure off their players. And look, we're not even talking about tomorrow's game yet. So that's not even the thing that everyone, Liverpool fans, are talking about. They're talking about the comments that Klopp made.
I think you make an absolute
brilliant point. Brilliant point, Jake.
Yeah, I mean, three experienced members of the Trippers didn't even think of that, and you've just come in.
Because we get such right in, we get emotional. Jake's just like
ballpark.
Sociopath at the side. There you go.
But it's true. He's spot on. All the great managers do it. Before, do you remember Mourinho done it?
Mourinho's the best that I thought, but that was just.
He's made a living out of it. That everything is against them, and then before you know it, the game started, and you're not even talking about the game on the pitch, and you're still talking about his comments, and the players can just. But on the side, he's got his players absolutely focused and ready for that game. And as Jakey says, all the great managers do it. So yeah. Klopp
just on that, Grizz, sorry to interrupt, but did you see that the new documentary coming out about Mourinho and Pep? And it's like a little clip at when Pep won the Champions League when they knocked Chelsea out. Mourinho goes into a press conference and says, I would be ashamed if I won that Champions League because they shouldn't have beat Chelsea because of the referee's performance. Just like stuff like that. That's like top tier shithousery. You know what I mean? That's next level. Unbelievable.
That ref had to retire after that.
Well, quite right. It was a shocking performance, but I was quite happy. But it's not.
It was a shocking performance, but it's all the death threats he got. So in the end, that referee never reffed again.
But that still ranks probably second or third in terms of most notorious awful refereeing games. I mean,
obviously the death threats is horrendous. I'm not saying that.
It was a horrendous performance. We did get the drum for gift, though.
Do you remember the game about Man United and Arsenal when Arsenal lost their Invincibles? I know we've spoken about when Liverpool lost the record against Watford. Arsenal went to Old Trafford and it was one of the most horrendous.
How did Gary Neville not get sent off in that game? Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. But listen, let's get back on point. And this is it's as vital as any game is in the Premier League in this season's campaign because of the fact that it's so close at the top, and every game, every point is vital. Sort of the margins of error are huge, aren't they? And Chris, let me put it this way, Chris, coming off the back of 2 draws against Brentford and Chelsea. We cannot afford to slip up at all against Watford, can we?
You wouldn't have thought so. I mean, if you're gonna the year Liverpool won the league, these sort of games they found a way through. So look, like you said, maybe because of the comments as Jake Rice pointed out, it's taking the pressure off the team a little bit. But I feel this is a game Liverpool will win, but I think it's going to be a horrible game. I think it's one of those horrible games that you just want to get it over with and get it done with. Because Watford away is normally for us tricky. I think our record is, I think apart from the last game, we've won our last 2 or 3 before that, but it never feels like a straightforward game. It feels a bit like when we used to go to Burnley away, where you probably should win, but you've got to have your A game on you.
Absolutely. You do. You have to, because, they've got a certain little manager that's taken over. Jakey, I want to ask you, sort of there's normal manager of the month awards, right? Going around, like, I think one of your managers should have a manager of the month, like sort of survival award, right? Because it's no, but it's ridiculous, right? Like, talk to me.
Great gas.
Talk to me through the process.
You think the contracts are like each month, like if you don't get past 2 months, you don't get the certain salary, or I don't know.
Do you know what I mean?
I saw a great tweet the other day, which is Ranieri's going to stay for 2 seasons, autumn and winter.
And that's probably spot
it's
on.
not wrong, mate. I don't think you get much money if you bet on that, to be honest.
I'll tell you what, you look at games, mate.
Oh.
Talk to us through the ownership's mindset and what's the thinking and thought process from their point of view, how it seems, because to the outside world, it seems like you're sort of taking on the Chelsea model of managerial roles, right? What's the thinking or what's the thought process from a Watford point of view?
Yeah, well, where do you start? I tell you what, we'll start with this season in terms of how we view the manager as Watford fans. So we sit 15th in the league. We've got 7 points, 2 wins, 1 draw and 4 losses. And on the surface, I think, as you guys have mentioned, from the outside, it looks like a very harsh sacking. Look, over the course of the season, you're looking at about 38 points. So that would probably, on average, keep you up. But unfortunately, if you'd watched Watford, you'd know, and a lot of Watford fans know this, the performances have been absolutely shocking after the opening day of the season against Aston Villa. We won 3-2. And I think it was almost a case of we almost overperformed a little bit. And in terms of that new managerial bounce back in the Premier League, we set the standard up here against a weakened Aston Villa team that, unfortunately, it was only going to go down. I didn't really appreciate that at the time, but we went on to play Brighton, Tottenham, Wolves, where we lost 3 on the bounce. We won at Norwich away, which we should be winning. There's absolutely no doubt about it. We were dreadful against Newcastle. And Grizz, you know what? The Newcastle game was the one for me where I thought a change had to be made. We could have been 4-0 down against Newcastle, and no disrespect to Newcastle, but this was before the ownership. This was before the ownership bounce, and they were in absolute disarray on and off the pitch. We could have been 4-0 down at half-time, and I thought to myself, this is not the right man to take us forward, because we set up in a 4-3-3. We were in a possession formation with a counter-attacking style. It was honestly bizarre, and there was no real progression in terms of the style of play. And then it was kind of capped off just before the international break at Leeds away, where there was no cohesion to the team. It was so disconnected. There was no identity to the style of play. And I have to admit, and I generally don't think I'm being biased here, I think we've got a good enough squad to stay in the Premier League. And you look at our next 8 games, and I think the owners have gone, and this is going back to your question, they've thought, look, can we get a new managerial bounce with a difficult run? We've got to play you guys, obviously, Everton away, Arsenal away, Chelsea at home, and Manchester City at home in our next 8 games. Can we get a new managerial bounce? Can we get a man in who has vast experience, and Ranieri fits the bill? And can we get a man in who is going to demand the respect of the players? And unfortunately with Cisco, because he hadn't had a lot of managerial experience, it meant that when the chips were down, ultimately it was difficult to pick them back up again. He was a very positive, very exuberant character that when it's going well, it's brilliant. And that's why he was so good in the Championship. But when you have games where we do lose 3 on the bounce, you need an experienced head to pick the team back up again and maybe win ugly one week. So in answer to your question, I think the owners have looked at it and gone, look, it's actually more of a risk to keep Xisco than to replace a new manager, if that makes sense. And I think that's probably the thinking behind the decision.
Kevin O'Sullivan and the previous was it Kieran? I think Kieran B was asking about sort of in terms of how Watford are going to set up, and we're going to get into that later. So just stick around, people. We will get into the way we will get into insight from Jakey how they're set up and how he's expecting them to set up. But Conroy, sort of off that, what Jakey described about sort of the roller coaster of managers that sort of Watford are employing. I think as he says, this is the one that will kind of, it makes sense in terms of this guy has got a fairly good record in the Premier League. He comes with huge experience, Ranieri. What are your thoughts on this appointment? And are we going to feel the effects of the dilly dong bounce? Conroy's
in deep thought.
You know what? That's out.
Conroy's in deep thought. So we're going to get Chris's thoughts on that question posed to Conroy.
I think Ranieri is a good manager. I agree with what Jake's saying. I was listening to Neil Axon, the Anfield Rap, and when he actually says when you look at the last 3 or 4 games for Watford, the underlying numbers around it was they were getting battered, but they were getting battered by Newcastle and Wolves, who aren't anything you should be really worried about. So I can say it just seems to be like a running joke that Watford lose a manager every 2 months. I think he'll do well for him, but he's very much a 4-4-2 man, and it's how quickly he can bed that in, because I don't know if your squad is designed for 4-4-2. I think it's designed more for, most clubs now play 4-3-3 or 4-5-1. And I think you've got a few key injuries with a few. I think you've got 2 fit centre backs now in the squad. So
yeah, we're struggling at the
yeah. So touch wood, it might work in our advantage, because I think Ranieri might use this as a game to see what he's got and go and use it as a free hit. So it might suit us actually to play them this early. I've seen a recent stat that says the new manager bounce isn't quite as big a thing as we think it is. I think it tends to be 30% of them get wins in the first game. It generally takes a few games for him to really kick in. So I think, fingers crossed, we should be okay. But I think Ranieri will do well there. He knows the league. He knows how to be pragmatic. And he's an experienced manager, and he's already starting his lesser tricks now. Aren't you guys getting pizzas if you get a clean sheet this weekend?
Not pizzas, we're getting dinner apparently.
Dinner.
Amazing. Conroy, I asked you the question before your cat pulled out the router.
I pulled out the Ethernet cable, mate. Sorry for that, guys.
I know she did. But I was just asking you in terms of sort of Ranieri. Can you see this appointment being sort of a stable appointment? Do you see it as a stable appointment, a steady appointment, or do you think this is quite an ambitious move from Watford?
Not in the sense of I wouldn't worry about Watford like managerial appointments. Like they get it done either way, by hook or by crook. The model, it does work. It's successful to a certain extent, even though got relegated. There's been a lot of positives from it. However, I don't understand this appointment. Listen, Watford could win 4-0 tomorrow. I'm still not going to change my opinion on this. I just think it doesn't make sense. Where is the proof that Ranieri, because 9 times, let's be honest, Jake, you're probably going to be in a relegation battle or close to it. Ranieri last season, why do people forget what he done at Fulham? Like, that was absolute mess what he done there. He's not good at that situations. For me, it won't work. I think there's better people for the job for what you need to do for Watford, and I can't be seeing it being that successful, to be perfectly honest. I hope I'm wrong. I really like Ranieri, but the last time he was successful, it was with a team who were going for the league. Remember that he didn't keep them up that season. That was Nigel Pearson. So he done a great job, but that was when everything was positive. I don't see it as being a good appointment, to be honest. I think the proof was in the pudding with Fulham. Bear in mind, he didn't finish the season with Fulham. Scott Parker's literally got a managerial career because Ranieri didn't do a good job. Let's put that in perspective.
Jakey, welcome to Conroy Talks. This is Conroy, where the chat will tell you that Conroy hates all the good people.
Do you know what?
I love Ranieri. I just don't think it fits at all.
Yeah, they're absolutely entitled to that opinion. I'm very much, obviously, I can't say whether it's going to do well or not. What I do know is I think we've got a better chance of staying up under Ranieri than Xisco. So yeah. I think what I appreciate particularly is you guys understanding the model, because I mean, we won't get into the mainstream stuff, but some of the stuff I was seeing online after, you know, the sacking is just a lack of research. It's so frustrating to me as a Watford fan, because it takes one search on Twitter, listening to one podcast, and you can find out everything you need to know about the club. But that's another story. In terms of Ranieri, look, I don't know whether Fulham's a fair example to use against him, because immediately the relationship between the owner and him was fractured. I think the great thing about him coming in is the Pozzos have known him for a long time, for about 20 years. They actually tried to appoint him at Udinese before he went to Chelsea. If you remember, just before Abramovich came in. So there's a relationship already there. I just think it'll be really interesting to, as you guys mentioned, to see how he sets up. Now, I think he's very much a 4-4-1-1 kind of guy, or a 4-3-1-2. And I think we all know he's going to go for the 4-4-2 defensive sort of version, particularly in the Premier League. And I think what we saw from his Sampdoria teams were teams that were very aggressive on the front foot, looked to press high. And I think that actually utilises the likes of Sarr, the likes of Dennis, the likes of Pedro as well, who's coming back into fitness. That's their best strengths. Where I think we are a bit light, as you guys touched on, is the centre-back areas. And, you know, if we look ahead to tomorrow, just in terms of who we're missing out, I've got a list here. We're missing Sierralta, who's our best centre-back. We're missing Kabasele, who's a decent backup for us. Nkulu, who's just joined on a free. He's going to take 3 weeks to get to fitness. Peter Atibo, who's been one of our best centre midfielders so far this season. And Josh King, who's probably our best number 9. So we are light. There's no doubt about it. So I'm not expecting us to win tomorrow, not at all. I think, Grizz, we mentioned on 90 Min, didn't we, about how I'm just expecting a performance and a pick-up in performances and encouraging signs that we can build on this, because I think it's unrealistic for any Watford fans to go into this expecting us to win. Not at all. We know Liverpool are far, far superior and far better. But what we can see is a performance and making it difficult for you guys, like we have done over the previous season. So it will be very interesting to see how we set up, as I'm sure we'll get later on in the show.
It's quite funny, Jake. Oh, sorry, Grizz. I was just going to say, the last time I remember us playing against someone who just got a new manager, and I think I said this, Chris, earlier in the week. It might not be the last time, but I remember Craig Shakespeare, Leicester. Leicester literally looked horrific, couldn't go near the ball. And then in that game, we lost 3-1. They were, running through brick walls for Craig Shakespeare. Ironically, he took place of Ranieri. So you never know, mate. These first games, a new manager comes in. They're strange games. I know Chris said the 30% thing, but they can be difficult.
Well, what you need... Sorry, go on.
No, just one thing that just came into my head is in terms of the international break. And, we had to make the change now because we had the international break. But, for example, Ismaila Sarr is only going to get 1 day of training with Ranieri. And that's not great, because Ranieri's so meticulous with his preparations, as most experienced managers are. And for him, maybe, and this might be a bit of a long shot, maybe he doesn't start, because Ranieri's so meticulous with his preparation. Maybe he goes, look, we'll give it 60 minutes and then we'll bring Sarr on. If we were going to play Sarr, I'd actually put him on the left-hand side. And the reason being is I feel Trent is the man you have to stop on that right-hand side, of course. And I feel I'd much rather pin him back than Robertson. And Robertson's a world-class left-back, there's no doubting that. But I feel Trent's creativity is something that Sarr could potentially halt, because he is a threat. And whether Trent would want to be more aggressive going forward on the right-hand side, I think Sarr could potentially stop that. But look, Ranieri knows better than me, but it'll be interesting to see how we set up, as I mentioned. It's
good you raise a few tactical points, and we'll get on to sort of how we think each of our teams can sort of hurt the opposition. Chris, in terms of the way Jake and even Conroy have spoke about sort of, Liverpool should win this, Watford's record, the players missing, etc. What you need in these kind of games is levelers, sort of outside influences in terms of what can possibly make it closer, if you know what I mean. And things like international breaks, things like early kickoff away game, things like the new manager and it being Claudio Ranieri, who's probably, very high in the popularity stakes. Of course, not in Conroy's household, but in most households.
I do love Ranieri.
No, you're getting it. You're getting it. Like you spoke about the Tinkerman like that.
Wait, I've got Bocelli when he sings at Leicester on my save videos on YouTube. When Leicester,
well, I tell you what, Jakey. But I tell you what, Jakey, without knowing how much you worship Robertson. Had a little slide dig back at this. So I love that little smile you done when he was talking about Robertson being, rather than Trent.
I
So that
don't
was
actually
good.
think he meant that, but I thought I was smiling.
But Chris,
I think he did mean that.
he did mean that.
Mate,
But Chris,
there's only one left back who's got 40 assists in the Premier League this year, and his name's
all right,
Andrew
all
Robertson.
right,
That's
all
it.
right, all right.
Mate, I love both those players. I'm not slagging any of them off, don't worry.
No, I know, mate. I'm only kidding.
But Chris, so all these things taken into consideration, there's always that hope for the smaller team and for the TV people that this could be an upset. How do we address that? How do we deal with these issues?
Yeah, I mean, the loss of Alisson and Fabinho is a bit of a leveler as well, because it's two world-class players.
Huge, yeah.
As much as Kelleher is a highly rated goalkeeper, he's not Alisson, so it automatically gives you a bit more of a chance. The key for it is probably it's probably the first 20 minutes. You've got to quieten the crowd down and get control of the game. Ironically, actually, despite the fact we won, we didn't do that very well at Leeds, and we probably didn't do it very well away at Brentford.
We didn't do it at all, Brentford. We didn't calm the fans down at all at any stage, yeah.
Yeah, so we've kind of got to go a bit like we did in the year we won it, is very pragmatic and almost like take the will out of them. It is keep the ball, it is let them run themselves out, because I do look, we've seen this year, Liverpool are averaging 3 goals most games, so scoring, touch wood, hasn't been too much of an issue. It's been silly defensive errors and lapses in concentration. So for me, it's got to be keep the ball. Frustratingly, this is a perfect game for Thiago, and we haven't got him. So I think you've got to find players who are good on the ball, which is why you probably need someone like a Keita, who, while he has his critics, I think I'm one of them. He is very good at keeping the ball. He is very good at keeping the tempo of the balls. I think that's kind of what you need. Not go too gun-ho. So that's what I think we need to do, is kill it in the first 20 minutes.
Conroy, we said the same. I think most of us had a chat about before the Leeds game, and in the end, we managed to sort of get a control of that game. But the Brentford one is our last away game against a promoted team, and we didn't fare very well, did we? It was a bit of a throwback to sort of the games in early days of Klopp,
Like
where
17,
it was
18 games, yeah.
The heavy metal football, the rock and roll.
Yeah, which we don't actually do anymore, but people who don't watch us.
This is it. I mean, I know I'm going to get into the sort of how we think we're going to set up a little bit later, but could this be a game where we sort of, how Chris has said we should approach the game, or we could approach the game? Do you think there's a chance we just say, Sodom, man, they're Watford? Like, no disrespect, Jakey, block your ears if you want for the next 30 seconds. But do we say, this is Watford? They've just come up. They've got mountain of injuries, just like we had last season, all in one area, it seems, from what Jake tells us. Is there a sort of energy inside you that says, let's just go for it. Let's just attack them from the first whistle?
I hear what you're saying, Grizz, but see, to be honest, you mentioned the Brentford game. That's the one game that makes me think, when we done that and we put it on the table, we couldn't finish when we had to. We had the chances in that game to write it off against Brentford, and we played it like basketball, and that's the reason we drew, because I feel like at the end of the day we just couldn't kill the game off. I don't think we'll approach it like that with Watford. I feel like there's enough in that team to control the game and be smart about it, and then just take the chances when they come. I feel like the Brentford one for me showed that when we play that way, there is weaknesses. Like any team, if you're going to play the gun-ho, there's going to be weaknesses. Like, specifically, it was Trent. It wasn't actually Trent's fault, but Brentford aimed for the left side and literally put 3 men from a diagonal ball on that side. So I don't know what Trent's meant to do about that. But you know what I'm saying? For me, I feel like even with the midfield, if you've got to say Hendo, Milner and Keita, I think that's enough to control the game, Grizz. I think we'll still go about it the usual way. I would maybe have not been of that opinion if I hadn't watched the Brentford game this season. But due to that, I think we'll go with a more measured approach.
I tell you why I mentioned that approach and possible approach from my side, because you keep mentioning the Brentford game, because it's being the last one and the manner of it. But Brentford have been coached meticulously by the same coach for X amount of time.
Frank, yeah.
Watford will be a total different entity.
No,
as Jakey says, Watford, he's had 2 weeks. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks.
and do you know? I might have put you on the spot here, but do you know the players that were away on international duty that he's only had a few days with?
So on the top of my head, mate, obviously the big one's Sarr with Senegal. Imran Louza was away with Morocco. Who else have we got?
Emmanuel Dennis,
Kutzka with Slovakia rather, and William Troost-Ekong with Nigeria. So there was actually quite a few players that were away. So,
and are these in and around the first team squad? Like
these are players that are either at least on the bench every time.
So see what I mean? So there's an aspect of me thinking they just won't have had enough time on the training ground. They won't, especially with the centre back scenario as well. But we'll get on to sort of how we think we're going to set up, and get your opinions, Chris and Conroy. Jake, so tell us sort of how you expect a tactical change, sort of formation change, possibly from your previous manager to this one, and if you've done some research on Ranieri, how he's set up. I know you mentioned Sampdoria. How do you think he'll sort of instill that into this Watford set of players?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, the two formations that Ranieri liked at Sampdoria, which is, look, how much you read into that, because it is a different league with Serie A, but it was a similar situation with Sampdoria. I actually spoke to a Sampdoria fan, and they were playing absolutely atrocious football, and he turned and guided them to ninth. So it's kind of a similar scenario with Watford, actually. And with Sampdoria, he played a 4-4-1-1 or a 4-3-1-2. Now, I think, look, with the wide players that we have, which is probably our strongest area, you've got to play two wide men. So I think it will be the 4-4-1-1. With the injuries, I don't think this will be his first 11. So he's very much working with what he's given at the moment. But if we'll run through the team that I would pick if I was Ranieri. So we'd go for the 4-4-1-1 with our Ben Foster in goal, with our Kiko at right back, William Troost-Ekong, and
while you go through them, if you could give us a description of what type of player they are as well, because there won't be household names to a lot of our listeners and viewers.
Absolutely.
Could I ask one question before that, Jake, just because you're on Foster? Now, I know someone who stays in Watford, who goes to a few games, and obviously I'm Scottish, so Bachmann had played in Scotland previously. He'd actually played against Scotland for Austria as well recently in the qualifier. What I was going to ask, what is the current feeling? Because he maybe informed me that there's been a bit of, not unrest, but there's been chopping and changing. But was that because Bachmann was injured, or was it because of a mistake initially? Forgive me, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, it's a bizarre one actually with Bachmann. So he was announced that he was injured before Norwich away, where we won 3-1, and then he was on the bench. It was bizarre. He had a brace on his knee. It was a really weird situation, and because Foster had come into the team and played pretty well, he's just kind of continued there. I actually think Bachmann's the one we should be playing because, as you said, I was really impressed with him at Kilmarnock. He came in last season midway through the year and was brilliant for us.
I heard that. It was very good.
And he's 26 years of age, and Ben Foster's 38. And I know you guys probably watched the Cycling GK or watched a few of his videos, but the fact of the matter is Bachmann is in my opinion, the better goalkeeper long term. So, but I think Ranieri will probably go for that experienced head at the back. I don't think he'll be. I think if you ask him, 38-year-old Ben Foster, who's seen everything in the Premier League, or Daniel Bachmann, who's only played four games or so in the Prem, I think he's going to go for Ben Foster every time. So yeah, and sorry, mate, just to run through the team. So obviously you've got Ben Foster, as you all know, he's a very experienced goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Pardon me. At the back four, you've got Kiko Femine, who's a very attacking right back. And I think that's one area which I think Liverpool will look to exploit because he is very aggressive going forward. He's one of my favourite players because of that, and it works against the teams that don't pin you back. But we all know with Liverpool, with the likes of Mane, Salah, the two fullbacks bombing on, he won't get that luxury. So
I saw that 5 minutes ago. I was trying to keep a straight face. Sorry, mate.
Laura Duffy absolutely bodied you in the chat there.
They all did. Red Steve went for the throat as well. The jugular there, Barry Lyndon.
Yeah. I thought that accent, I
thought you were Welsh.
Lads, can we let Jake?
I'm Irish on other channels.
Can we let Jakey run through the lineup, please?
Sorry, Jake.
No more funny comments in the chat as well, people. Go on.
Good crack. Yeah, so then obviously the two centre-backs, as I mentioned, we haven't got our full-strength centre-backs. With Sierra out, Cabasele's out. Nkulu, who we've just signed, who's obviously an experienced Cameroon defender. So it'll probably be Craig Cathcart, and William Troost-Ekong, which I have to admit, Cathcart's probably one of the weakest players in the squad.
Really?
So, yeah, that's a problem, to be honest with us.
So he hasn't been starting since you've been. Did he play a lot in the Championship for you?
He's been here for a long time. I think it's almost 8 years. But this is another thing against Cisco with the previous manager. So he was playing at right back, out of position, over a natural right back. That was another thing that fans were getting really frustrated with, because we were playing a centre back out of position. And that was just another dilemma which we just got really frustrated with. So Cathcart will be with William Troost-Ekong, who's the Nigeria captain and one of the fan favourites, really. And then obviously a guy that you guys all know, Danny Rose. Joined us on a free from Spurs. Came in with his fitness not at a great level, because he'd only played under 23 football under Mourinho. And he's come in, he's got his fitness up, and I still think he's a little bit off absolute sharpness, but he's been brilliant for us this season, really good. I think Danny Rose is one of those players which, look, I think in a race you'd back Salah every single time, pretty much against any defender. But I think Danny Rose against Salah is probably the best battle we've got, in the respect that Danny Rose has the experience of that against that calibre of player, if you know what I mean. I'm not saying that Salah won't beat him, but I think Danny Rose has played against some of the elite in European football. So I'm looking forward to that battle tomorrow. In terms of the two midfielders, if we're going for a 4, we'll go for Sarr on the right-hand side. As you guys all know, I think he'll probably join you next summer. You've then got the two midfielders with Kutska, who's actually out at the minute. So it'll probably be Moussa Sissoko, who joined from Spurs in the summer, alongside Tom Cleverley. I think you guys know them. I mean, the big issue for me, Grizz, is that not one of those are ball-winning midfielders. I think that's where, again, we're a little bit light in that department.
You still miss the Curie quite a lot, would you say? You're not really replaced the Curie.
You know what? I think great shout, Conroy, because I think we've seen this season how good Decore is.
He's outstanding against United, mate. Unbelievable.
I mean, he just runs for days, doesn't he? He's such a... I said it at the time that this guy is a really special player, and I think he's going to just keep going and keep improving under Benitez, who will get the best out of him. So we have missed him really since he moved on, and Etienne Capoue, who was massive. Those two were brilliant.
Good players, right?
Culshaw Hernandez, who's dipped in and out of the team. He's his first season here at Watford. Scored on the opening day against Aston Villa.
Some goal, mate. Matty Cash is still thinking about that.
And he's a tricky winger because he likes to cut inside, so it'll be interesting to see him playing off the left. And then the two up front, which I would personally go for João Pedro in that number 10 role. He hasn't played a lot of football this year, but mate, this guy is special. I'm not even joking. This guy is seriously.
We spoke about him, didn't we? We spoke about at the start of the season, and I mentioned him because he was very, very closely linked with us as well. And it was a surprise and a shock, to be honest with you, that Watford at the time managed to prize him away. I haven't kept tabs on him since. How has he been? Because I know he's talented. And also, do you think he's a Claudio Ranieri type? I know you mentioned him playing in the 10. Does Ranieri play with that type of player, do you think? Or is that your heart speaking?
That's a great question. I tell you what, first off on João, for any player to lead the line in a promotion-winning team is an achievement. But for an 18-year-old kid in his first season in English football, to be one of our top goal scorers and leading the line in 46 games of a championship season pretty much, and playing the majority of the games, I personally think is special. And in terms of his technical ability, Danny Rose has said it. He said he's one of the most exciting players he's seen, and he's been around some really good players at Spurs. Moussa Sissoko said the same thing. This guy is so special in terms of his technical ability, but also what I like about him is he has that edge. He has that South American edge where he's willing to put in a bit of a dirty tackle, stamp on someone's toes off the ball. And I know obviously if you get sent off, then it's not great. But overall, he's an exciting player, and I think he'll get a big move very, very soon. And then leading the line, someone you like, Grizz, Emmanuel Dennis. I think he'll be...
Dennis the Menace.
Dennis the Menace. He's very quick player. Likes to make runs in behind. Will like to drift wide, which will be interesting to see how that works, because if that happens, João will have to push on into that centre-forward role. And then you have the likes of Sarr and potentially Culshaw overlapping as well. So that's the team I would go for. Apologies, it's a bit long-winded, but...
No, we done that. That was very much needed, and thank you very much for that, Barry. This is why we done that sort of catch up from Jake, because people like you've only heard of one player. Come and get with it. You're on Khanage. You've got to be a football man to be on Khanage. Come on, you should know more than one player from Watford. Chris, from listening to sort of the insight from Jake about his club and everything and the way he expects them to set up, it seems like they haven't, or they're missing that target man type striker, sort of
Troy
Deeney's and the Josh King.
Someone just said that in the chat.
Yeah. Does that favour us after our sort of experience with Brentford, or do you think that was just a one-off and we should sort of set up the way we set up? And also, do you think there's any surprises in the way we approach this game tactically? I don't want you to go into the personnel right now, but sort of in terms of tactically, in terms of formation. I mean, you can mention players. Sorry, you have to.
I know you mean
players, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. You'd like to think it was a bit what I mean. To be fair, at Brentford, that their main man was in top form, but Matip and Van Dijk forgot how to head a ball. I've never seen Van Dijk and Matip miss so many headers. It was very uncharacteristic. So I think we sort of set up the way we set up. I just wonder with the midfielders missing, do we go to a midfield 2 and play and do a 4-2-3-1? We always talk about Klopp doing it. He very rarely likes to go to it. So I get the feeling, as much as we all talk about it, we'd like it. I think he just goes 4-3-3, picks midfielders he's got available, and I think he just goes with Firmino over Jota, just because Firmino's had 2 weeks training and Jota's had a slight injury niggle with Portugal and just gives him a rest. I think that's what he does. I mean, the main man to play it's boring, but it's true. Is Salah. He's got 8 goals in 6 games versus Watford. So, that's the plan. That's what you go for. Give it to Salah.
Just to jump in there, I was in the away end in that 5-0 win where Salah scored 4. That was honestly, you know what? There's some games where it's just a joy to watch some players. I know that sounds really weird when you lose 5-0, but oh my God, that's probably one of the best individual performances I've ever seen from a player. So good. So good.
Yeah. Conroy, what do you do in your brain? How are you setting up against the Watford, the team that I pretty much agree with Jakey that he's going to set up as a 4-4-1-1, try to be compact. I don't think he's going to let Firmino bomb on. Danny Rose is going to play. I think they're going to play pretty much a flat back 4. I'm surprised. It's totally slipped my mind that Danny Rose is your starting left back. I didn't know that. Conroy, how confident are you in terms of the way he's described their setup and the players that he's described cleverly in Sissoko? This could come back to haunt me. This could be clipped, but not the most sort of players that you'd think will have possession and control and dictate a midfield. In return, how do we combat that, or how do we enforce our game then in terms of personnel and tactics?
For me, I've got to be honest, it's kind of similar to Chris. I do feel that, I know there's some suggestions in the chat, some people are saying the 4-2-3-1 is not LFC. I kind of agree with that. I feel like when we've tried to mix up with stuff like that in the past, and I know we've got a limited choice in midfielders now. So, for example, I'm not going to go into the players, Grizz, but there's a certain player you'd add in who might suit that system. But I agree with Chris. I feel like 4-3-3, measured approach, just play like we have with the midfielders we've got. And I think we'll have enough to beat Watford, just going with our usual plan like that. I do get that this might be a different story in maybe a month's time once Ranieri's had more time to do that. But I feel like if it's quite a cliche phrase, but if we go to them 100% to win the battle, we've got better players at the end of the day, so we should overcome that with the class we've got. And I think, and Jake, I don't know if you obviously not watched lots of Liverpool, but there is a lot of performances where Liverpool have done that. Maybe not this season, but in the past, where it's a case of we get in these games, we do enough to create chances, we get the goal, we control the game, and then we maybe nick a second goal late on, and we just got a professional performance. That's how I see us winning tomorrow, and not giving Watford momentum. Because this is the one thing that happens. The new manager comes in, obviously fans are back now, stadium's bouncing, right? I really, really hate when big teams just play like Brentford, you play basketball against them and just give them the ball back and give the crowd momentum. It really annoys me. So I think the best bet with Liverpool is just controlling the game from the start and just being professional about it. And that's how I think we get the win. I say I would love to come with some, amazing link, Grizz, to how we're going to unravel them by playing Ox and a false 9. But I've got to be honest, mate, I think when you've got the form of Salah like that, just put him on the park and then get the rest to run around them. But no,
Yeah.
I think we'll have enough, mate.
Jonathan makes a point here, and I wanted to sort of touch upon this topic before we go into our predictions in terms of lineups and scores. So, Chris, I come to you with this. He says Ox could come in handy if they play a low block with his runs in behind, but don't like him and Naby together in midfield. It's the big midfield conundrum, isn't it? We've all discussed it in the last couple of days. LFC Twitter has been rife with sort of claims of if Ox doesn't get to play in a game like this, where he's had 2 weeks with the squad and injuries to, well, absentee Fabinho, injuries to Thiago, and who's the other one missing? Jones. So that's 3 starting, central midfielders. Jones has been brilliant as well. What do you think about that? Because it frustrates me. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be honest. I agree with the noise about if Ox can't start in games like this, why on earth did we keep him?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't like Ox and Keita in the same midfield. It doesn't work. Every game we've played it in, I know we've won some of them, it doesn't work at all. The problem with Ox is, how can I phrase this? It's not Jurgen Klopp's job to give Ox games to hope he can find form. You know, he had a full pre-season and he stunk the gaff out against Norwich. Norwich really stunk the gaff out. He's in his own head at the moment, and I'd rather just be. I think at the moment Ox has got to be an impact sub until perhaps in the League Cup games he starts showing what we saw against Atletico Madrid 2 years ago. Well, I know we went out, but that was the best I'd seen Ox play since his knee injury.
In a little while.
That game, yeah.
But since then, he just looks the shadow of the player himself, and I don't think he's in his own head, or he can't help when his wife gives birth. But maybe the sliding doors were if he doesn't miss the Burnley game, does that get him his run? But at the moment, for me, Ox just has to be an impact sub and do something in the League Cups. Once he can prove he can do something consistently and he's trusted, then he can do that. Until then, for me, in that midfield, he's 4th choice. To me, he's not considered an option for a start.
Jake, when you look at this Liverpool team, obviously the obvious threat stand out. Obviously, you know.
Where do you start?
Yeah, well, where do you start? Tell us, where do you start, and where do you think, and how do you think you're gonna sort of try to cope with that? Knowing that our midfield won't be sort of our first choice midfield, it'll probably be our second choice, right? All 3. Well, Henderson wouldn't play as the number 6. So considering that, do you try to sort of flood the midfield and sort of try to overrun our midfield?
Yeah, look, it's very easy to. I mean, it's very difficult to say in terms of if Liverpool, as you guys have mentioned, if Liverpool turn up as we know they can, they will win the game. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that's not going to happen. What I can think we can look to exploit is what I've noticed from when I watched Liverpool this season, and guys, correct me if I'm wrong, is the giving up of chances to the opposition have increased from the last season. So in terms of, I think there was a stat I saw the other day in terms of the number of chances have been worthy of 1.4 goals, which is the 11th best in the league.
Interesting.
So for me, it's a case of, look, this is a cliche, but we have to take our chances with the chance that we get. There was an element of luck, as we saw. Watford were brilliant against Liverpool in that 3-0 win, but there was an element of catching Liverpool on an off day. If Liverpool have a poor day, if we play to our best, but also it's a case of making sure that when we do get the chances, even if we don't score, we're building momentum. And I think you guys mentioned, I think Conroy mentioned about the momentum is in terms of it being at home. It's such a crucial word for teams that aren't maybe outside the top 6 at home, and particularly when you're promoted from the Championship, is creating that atmosphere and building the momentum, and that's the stuff that we can control off the pitch. But on it, in terms of, look, it's very difficult to say because you have so many match winners in your team that if Salah turns up tomorrow, the game's done. It's as simple as that. In my opinion, he's the best attacker in the world at the minute. He's the most informed player, arguably, in the world at the minute. So if he turns up, look, it's game over for us. But one thing I wanted to ask you guys, just in terms of like the Liverpool perspective as well, is do you feel like this team is closer to a Rodgers 13-14 in terms of the style, it being very kind of, as you mentioned, the basketball match in that Brentford game, being a little bit, I kind of feel the Liverpool team at the minute is a little bit unbalanced from what I've seen, Whereas in 2019-20, I felt there was complete dominance throughout the pitch, whether it was at the back, in the midfield, and up front as well. Whereas I feel at the moment, the only part where I feel Liverpool are playing 10 out of 10 is that front three. Is that fair, or am I being a bit?
No, I think that's fair comment. I think that's very fair comment. Chris, do you want to give your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't think it's quite 13-14. I do think the big thing for Liverpool at the moment is Van Dijk, Matip, and Gomez. They're still finding their feet after big injuries. And I think that's the, as well as Van Dijk's played this year, he's nowhere near yet the level that we know Van Dijk can get to. And I wouldn't expect him to be after such a big knee injury. And it's sometimes a little bit disjointed with, Trent missing a few games. Midfield hasn't quite performed as we'd liked. I think some of the slag off the midfield is usual hyperbole that we see, that it's either brilliant or it's shit, and the truth's somewhere in the middle. Like, I must admit, everyone says we got dominated by City. You will get dominated by City when they play 6 midfielders versus 3. Do you know what? It's dead hard when it's 6 versus 3. And also, you've got to say, City are really good, So, actually, I thought actually first 5 games, control-wise, we weren't too bad. It's just been the last probably 2 or 3, Milan, Brentford and City, we have hit a bit of a patch where we haven't controlled games the way we want. And you see that in Klopp's reaction. We kind of lost a little bit of bravery, I would say, in midfield. So hopefully Watford, that's where they're going to come back. We keep seeing the talk of, if Genie was this, if Genie was that. Look, at the end of the day, Genie's gone. Stop harping back for players who have gone. I'm a very old school. In fact, once a player's gone, they're gone. I don't really give a shit once they've left Liverpool. So don't hark back to something that you didn't have.
Yeah, just my very good friend, Big Steve's in the chat. Can't wait for the excuses from Grizz. Listen, I don't think we'll need excuses, but you can get the violins out when I start bringing them out. But thanks for popping to our chat. Love you loads, mate. Catch up soon. Thank you for the super chat from Billy the Muslim. He says we need to regain our fearlessness once again. Players possibly and especially fans are full of doubt that will only come with a run of wins. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, right, Conroy? It's still fairly early. And I think Jake was spot on about sort of the only part of our old machine that's not functioning quite right is the midfield. But I think that makes sense as well, because we've had so many chopping and changing in there. We haven't had a set midfield for possibly, I don't know if Laura Duffy's still there. Laura, can you find out for us how many times we've played the same central midfield? So yeah, check that out. I'm not sure, Conroy. It kind of makes sense with the chopping and changing, right?
No, I would say, Grizz, I'd say a mixture of chopping, changing, and certain players being maybe having poorer games. Like, I know people are kind of on Hendel at the moment. I don't think Hendel's been poor all season. I just think the last couple of games he's not been amazing. But I feel like it's a mixture between that. I would also add as well that you've got the fullbacks now. Jake Shimikas has been really good when he's came in, and Trent was really good when Robbo was quite not great at the start of the season. Then Robbo's came into form, but then Trent's missed a few games. So there's that to it as well. So I'm not saying that the midfield's probably the primary one we're talking about, but I feel like the timing of that's been a bit strange as well. So I don't think Robbo and Trent have actually both played a good game this year. Trent's had probably better games than Robbo, but when Robbo's had a good game, Trent's been missing or, not had a great one. So it's been a strange one, but I would kind of reiterate, I feel like the midfield's understandable. I understand why Jake would see it that way. I do get that, mate. But see, like the Manchester City game, the way I looked at that is Man City, for me, are the best team in the league, 100%. And Liverpool could have got done in the first half, but we managed to be resilient, stay in the game thanks to Alisson. And then second half, we showed what we can do. To me, that's actually made me more confident because I already know they're a better team. It's just about winning more matches than them. And you can do that.
Do you know what I find scary, just from an outside point of view, looking at Liverpool, is you mentioned the chopping and changing and still trying to find that balance in the midfield. You're sitting second in the league, 1 point behind the top. I mean, that is scary for me, looking at this Liverpool team. Now, look, do I think Liverpool win the league? I think you'll be up there. Absolutely. But the fact that it hasn't clicked yet and you're only 1 point off the top, mate, I think that's, if anything, that's probably a positive.
That's why tomorrow's quite important, Jake, as well, because we want to just kind of keep that ticking away. And when it does click, we're not maybe say too far behind. But I think Chelsea and Man City are going to make it a bit of a barnstorming race, and you need to be there or thereabouts. But
every week, every week the margin of error is slim, isn't it? And tomorrow's one of those games where you look back at a end of a campaign and say that was a crucial 3 points. Do you remember we went there after the international break with injuries and absentees, and they had Mr. Ranieri taking charge, and it was a 12:30 kickoff. What's your atmosphere like at 12:30 kickoffs? Because I don't like Anfield 12:30 kickoffs. I've been to a couple and they've been horrendous. So what's your atmosphere? It's a tricky one, isn't it? Because you'll be up for it because of Ranieri.
Absolutely, mate. I mean, I don't think I've ever been to a 12:30 or been to a 12:30 where the atmosphere hasn't been flat. I genuinely, I mean, everyone's half awake. Like, I mean, people are the people aren't even having pints, they're having coffee in their seats. Do you know what I mean? They're waking up for the first 45
But
minutes.
that's why I think the first goal, or if we get an early goal, will be so crucial, won't it? It will just kind of just deflate and sort of, nothing's changed here type of attitude amongst the fans.
Mate, I completely agree with that, because not that I don't think as Watford fans we would see it that way, but in terms of the players, if you're conceding an early first goal against Liverpool, look, it is Liverpool, so one of the best teams in the league, but at the same time, just confidence is drained. It's very difficult at that point. Number one, to take control of the game again, stick to the game plan, and then ride it out for the next 80 minutes or so, with the belief that you can get back into the game, because it's then that counterbalance of, on the one hand, do you just try to kind of stay in the game and try and nick one in the last 10 minutes, or do you just go for broke? But then if you do that, then Liverpool are just going to absolutely ruin you. So yeah, I think you guys are absolutely bang on. The first goal tomorrow is probably is more crucial for. I mean, look, if we got the first goal, I'd still be sitting there thinking Liverpool had the quality to get back in the game within a couple of minutes. Whereas I think if Liverpool get the first goal, it's almost a deflation of the game's done.
Well, on the back of that, Chris, pick us your Liverpool team that you think Klopp will pick, not your preferred. We've done what we think we want to do. To hit me with your prediction for tomorrow's game after what you think will be the lineup.
I think it'll be Kelleher in goal, Trent, Matip, Van Dijk and Robbo, Henderson, Milner, Keita, Salah, Firmino and Mane.
So you think Keita, because that'll be his 4th game in 10 days. Woohoo!
Well,
how often has he done that since joining Liverpool?
I know, that's how sad it is at the moment that someone playing 4 games, we're like, whoa, what a thing.
Do you know what I mean? Here we go. We've got some moral support for Jakey in the chat. Amazing. So go on, give us a prediction, Chris.
3-1. Salah, Van Dijk, Mane, and I think Dennis for Watford.
Excellent. Salah, Mane, and who's the other one?
Van Dijk.
Mane. Oh, Van Dijk. Oh, you fancy a set piece?
Yeah,
they're quite a big team, aren't they? Jay? You guys are quite sort of your average height of your team.
Yeah, you know what, mate? With our full strength team, we're pretty physical. I just think with the players that we've got out, may not be as imposing. I think, unfortunately, in this sort of game. But look, we'll see.
Excellent. Conroy, hear us what you think Klopp will pick, not one of your Zanny own imagination teams. What you think Klopp? What you think Klopp will pick, and what do you think the scoreline will be?
11 Scottish pen.
Yeah, 11 Bravehearts. You're on mute, I think.
Everyone thinks that. No, I'm not that obsessed with it. I actually am going to shock you with this because I've changed my mind from during the week, having a further think about it. So I think it'll be Kelleher, Trent, Matip, Van Dijk. I think Shimikas will play. So I feel like with Trent coming back, I think it's not even about more Shimikas. He has been in great form, and so is Robbo. But I do think the Atletico game, Robbo, I'm not going to go into it, but had a brilliant international break, but played quite a lot as well. Played 290 minutes, quite intense games, both of them. So I do think Shimikas will come in. I've changed my mind for that. Same midfield as Chris. I think Keita, Milner, and Hendo. Probably Hendo in the 6. I don't know if you maybe think Milner will be in there, but probably will be Hendo. He's got the most experience there. However, folk would maybe say Milner's played better there recently. And then my front three would be Firmino, Mane, and Salah.
Firmino, Mane, Salah. So you'd live at Jota because of the fact
I just think because of the he'd be on the bench, I think. But just start with Bobby. And my prediction, I think we'll win 2-0, 0-2, and I'd say Mane and Salah.
Nice one. Jake, if Conroy is predicting such a comfortable win, well, you guys are in trouble because you know
He never does. He never does.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
comfortable.
So,
It's still going to be stressful.
oh, it's still going to be stressful. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah, a bit of Conroy still left in him.
Can't get rid of that drug. Can't get rid of that drug.
Give us your thoughts on. Well, you've given us your lineup. Give us your thoughts on the prediction of the game.
Head or heart, Grizz?
Do both. Do both. The best way. That's what I do. You know what I do. You know what I do, innit? We've 90 minutes of this. So just give different scores on different shows, and one of them do right, and then say I told you so.
My head, hopefully, is sane. Is telling me it will be a 3-1 Liverpool. I think Salah will score 2 just because of his record against Watford. I mean, it's bloody ridiculous. I think the shout for Van Dijk at a set piece, I could potentially see that. So my head's telling me 3-1 with Dennis to score. My heart's telling me we'll scrape a 1-1 with Salah and Dennis scoring. So, but look, I think it will be unlikely, if I'm honest, Grizz. I mean, I'm not deluded. I know who we're coming up against. do you know what I mean? So look, we'll see.
Listen,
you know what? And I know this is going to sound a bit small time, but genuinely, I'm so looking forward to seeing the likes of Mane, Salah, these world-class players. Because look, I love Watford, but seeing these, I mean, I don't live far from the ground, and seeing these players up the road, I mean, for me, is amazing. So
yeah.
Can't wait to see some really good football tomorrow. And I hope it's a good game, to be honest. I hope it's an entertaining one for the neutral anyway.
I hope so too, because thanks to the wonderful Dean, I need to give him a shout out on Twitter. Thanks to Dean, who's managed to sort me out with a ticket. I'm actually on the way tomorrow. It's not far from me at all. Yeah, amazing. The atmosphere the last 2 times I've been at Watford, I was telling Jake, it's fantastic. It's probably on a par with Palace away. It's one of the great away days.
Easy to get to as well.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Yeah, exactly. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope it's as comfortable as some of the guys have made out it's going to be. I genuinely think these kind of games are all about the result and not the performance. So I just think at the end of the day, I hope we get the 3 points. It's been a fantastic show, guys. We always try to do an hour, but the chat was so good and flowing. We didn't get to discuss sort of transfer rumours and whatnot, like the Rafinha rumours and Ismail Sarr. We didn't even get a chance to talk about. But it's Friday now. I'm not going to keep hold of you guys too much. Jakey, look, first and foremost, thank you very much for coming, and let everyone know where they can find you for more of your absolute great insight and content, mate.
Thank you very much, Chris. Pleasure. Thanks to the guys, Chris and Conroy, for having me on as well. Top guys. Yeah, look, if you want to watch some Watford fan content, learn a bit more about the club, I guess, just check us out on WD18 on YouTube and Twitter at WD18 fans. So we do a lot of Watford kind of similar stuff to you guys in terms of post-match chat, previews. So yeah, you can check us out on there. So pleasure.
Absolutely. To be on look, the viewers and everyone in the chat has seen how level-headed he is, and I've got the pleasure of doing bits with him for 90 minutes, and he's an absolute gem. So I suggest everyone get over there and give him a follow and follow some of his content. Chris and Conroy, part of the team, absolutely heroes for me tonight. You are legends. Thank you very much for helping me out tonight.
Cheers for having us, Chris.
No,
Conroy, I mean, no one's asked in the chat, but I mean, I want to know from a personal point of view, like, where is the cat? Like, what have you done? There's not been one tinkle.
No, do you know what I've done? Do you know what I've done, right?
What?
I should maybe stop doing this, but what I do before I come on the show, right, is I take her collar off now. So she is lying about here, but you just can't hear her because the bell's off the collar. So it's just silent, you know.
Idiots.
But some of the comments are honestly, listen, Jake, my cat has genuinely got a better following than me. I've not got a following, but this cat has got a following. See, when I have a video and there's comments, it's just a picture of the cat and the bell emoji. That's what people comment. It's amazing, mate. Amazing.
The cat's probably more positive about Liverpool as well.
100%. Honestly, mate, you're not even wrong. She watches the games with me, and she just looks at me thinking, "You're out of control, mate. You're out of control." But no.
But listen, guys, fantastic show. Don't forget to go and check out my sponsor, www.eliteme.com. Fantastic CBD products. I'm an absolute advocate of them because I use them and it helps me snore at night. It's brilliant. I sleep like a log Is that the right phrase? Because I'm known to say the wrong phrases.
No, that's
Chris,
right.
can I just double
That's the
check
right
with
phrase,
you?
mate.
That's the right one, mate.
Thank you very much, man. Thank you. Asleep like a log. It's been a fantastic show. We'll be back next week. We've got the Fatback 4 on Sunday. Wow, because it's Friday. So a couple of days away where we'll have a more in-depth chat about the game. Hopefully a very vital 3 points that we've picked up, and on we go. But until then, I'd like to thank all of you in the chat as well. It's been popping as usual, sending out the maddest chats. Please like and subscribe if you haven't on the way out. And I just want to thank all of you, and we see you soon. Thank you very much.